Hi, I'm Brian O'Day, and this is Creepy Canada. On today's program, we travel to British Columbia, Canada, to meet two women who claim they were abducted by aliens. And in New York, a woman buys old cemetery gates and opens a floodgate to the spirit world. And to Chickie's Rock, one of the most haunted regions in Pennsylvania.
Nestled in the cleft of the Cascade and Monashee Mountains in British Columbia, Kelowna's lakeside setting draws visitors from around the globe. And for one summer night, in July 2003, quite possibly from outside our planet as well.
Brian Vike, Director of HBCC UFO Research, is actually monitors the UFO activity here in British Columbia and basically around the globe. 2003 happened to be an incredible year for the sightings. There was approximately 300 or more reports that year. I had a call from a lady by the name of Karina who lives in Kelowna here. She explained that her and her friend Linda were actually out star watching and ended up having an experience. And I tell you, she was very distraught when she called.
My friend Linda and I were sitting at the computer late the night before she left to go back to Abbotsford. She suddenly said to me, "Why don't we go stargazing?" And I mentioned to her that it was getting quite late. It was, around midnight. I was really tired. Could we possibly think about doing this the next time she was up? But she really insisted on going.
The women got into Karina's car and pretty soon found themselves on a back road, looking for a secluded area, shielded from the city lights. Karina was new to the area and wasn't sure where to find a good spot for stargazing. They soon found themselves on a road that runs between Kelowna and Vernon. There was no moon that night, so it was very dark. Karina stopped her car somewhere beside Kelowna's landfill. Linda got out and looked up at the sky with her binoculars. Karina pulled out a large spotlight she had in the car and pointed it down the road ahead of them. As Linda watched through her binoculars, she noticed a group of 3 stars in the shape of a triangle. She pointed them out to Karina. Neither of them could figure out what the lights could be. They both agreed on one thing. They weren't lights from a plane. There was no engine sound. The lights started to move ahead of their car, changing color from white to green. The air, which had been warm, turned musty and cold. It took a second for Karina to register what they were looking at. These weren't anything from this planet, staring back at them from out of the dark. They began to move towards the 2 women. They ran back to the car as fast as they could, but it was like moving through quicksand. It was as if the whole world around them was slowing down to a crawl. Karina remembers having a hard time getting her hands to open the car door. Once they were inside the car, she tried to get it started. The lights inside the car flashed on and off randomly. It was as if the car had gone crazy. Karina finally got the car started and sped back towards town. As they drove along, Karina remarked to Linda that she felt weird, as if electricity had been zapped through her whole body, as if by a charge from a battery. Linda took comfort from the fact that they both felt the same way. That's when she looked at the dashboard clock.
Visits by little green men and flying saucers. The stuff of science fiction or drive-in theaters, maybe? Think again. In 2003, with over 400 visits by alien craft or alien creatures in British Columbia, it seems as though we're under some sort of invasion. That July, 2 women from Kelowna, British Columbia, had a visit of the terrifying kind.
As they continued their drive home, Linda commented on the time. The women felt they hadn't been out of the car for more than a few minutes, but according to the clock, it had been almost an hour.
You know what? We just got
Where did that missing time go?
really wrong here. You know what?
Suddenly, they both saw another large orb low in the sky on the far side of a field. Karina stopped the car. Could this be one of the same orbs they had seen earlier? Karina tried to convince Linda the orb was just a low-flying aircraft or helicopter. But even with both windows down, neither one of them could hear any noises from the mysterious orb. It started to move further away from their vehicle. To prove her point, that it was just a plane, Karina held up her spotlight out of the car window and flashed it 3 times directly at the orb. To her horror, it stopped dead in midair, then came flying down directly at them. Terrified, Karina panicked and took off down the road. She headed for home, trying to ignore the celestial object high above. After the break, the physical after effects of an alien encounter.
When I was contacted by Karina and Linda, basically I asked, what the object looked like and, how large, so forth. They said probably about the size of a full moon and definitely like a lime green, neon green in color. And this is from their vantage point on the highway.
The next morning, as Karina got out of bed, she discovered a large bruise on her left breast. She also felt nauseous and had severe head pressure. As she sat at her kitchen table drinking coffee, Linda joined her. Linda also complained about feeling sick, and suddenly, her right nostril started to bleed.
Oh, man. Oh, that is really...
Karina grabbed a towel and tried to staunch the flow of blood. After they'd stopped the nosebleed, Linda left to take a shower and clean up. Karina's daughter then came down to the kitchen. She too felt nauseous and complained of a stuffed up nose. Then, just like Linda, her nose began to gush blood from the right nostril. Karina helped her stop the bleeding, and not wanting to alarm her daughter, she told her nosebleeds can happen when someone feels sick.
I don't know.
But she suspected that her encounter the previous evening hadn't ended at the front door. A few kilometers from where Karina and Linda had their alien encounter, a man and his daughter, unable to sleep because of the night heat, had come out on their veranda to cool down. They noticed, to the south, an orb of intense luminous green traveling fast from east to west. The air went from warm to musty and cold, and all the normal sounds of nature at night stopped, as if someone had turned off a switch. They also reported the glowing ball landing somewhere in southeast Kelowna, the area of Karina and Linda's missing time event.
This last sighting was most important because the eyewitness pretty much verified the time, location the ladies were when they had their experience on the highway. Here at HBCC UFO Research, we act as a support mechanism for people who've had an alien encounter. Many times medical professionals scoff, at the whole idea, and they're always looking for a more rational explanation. And I can tell you, with this kind of attitude, there are a lot of people who are not coming forward who are going through these same experiences Karina and Linda did.
I think these encounters go back for decades for me. When I was 12, I discovered a scoop mark on my leg, which I have absolutely no explanation for.
A scoop mark is actually a small, maybe semicircle gouge taken out of somebody's flesh. Some of the abductees figure that, it is a surgical procedure, basically, maybe for tissue sampling. Also, maybe they've added something to keep track of them, such as a farmer would his cattle, a scientist would wild game, so forth. Also, this is a good way to keep an eye on the abductee, where their whereabouts are in case they want to pay another visit.
Another encounter involved my 9-year-old son. and we lived in the Aldergrove area at the time. It was in the morning. I was woken up by my son's terrified screams coming from his bedroom. I ran into his room and found him on his bed with his back arched in extreme pain. I went to him and tried to calm him down. He kept pointing to his lower back, saying, "It hurts, it hurts." I rolled him over and discovered a hole in his back, just above the tailbone, a little smaller than a dime, that went in almost to the bone. When I took him to my doctor, he had no explanation for this type of injury, and at first suspected me of child abuse, something my son denied. The doctor then went on to say he thought the wound was perhaps caused by chicken pox. My son, even at 9 years old, turned to the doctor and said, "You've got to be kidding." I asked my son later if he could remember anything about that night. His only recollection of the incident was being woken up by a scary beeping sound. The hole in his back took 3 months to heal and left a permanent scar on his back.
In conversations with Karina, I found out that her son, of course, lives on the Lower Mainland, Karina here in Kelowna, and her son, definitely loves his mom. He wants to come and see her, but when they make arrangements for him to come up, sometimes he comes up with some excuses, and it is due to the December 2003 experience, and because he's frightened of what might happen again to him.
When we come back, strange body markings develop after the alien encounter. Karina's son decided to come up from Vancouver to visit his mom and sister in their new apartment. They were happy to see each other and catch up.
Great. I got straight A's.
The next morning, Karina's son woke up with a very itchy sensation on his back. He asked his mother to take a look to see what the irritation could be. She discovered a first-degree burn in the shape of a triangle. Each side was about 4 inches. Inside the triangle was a series of quarter-inch dots. Upset by this, they went to a local walk-in clinic to get a doctor's opinion. None of the consulted medical personnel could explain what sort of device could leave a burn with such clean edges beside the unaffected tissue. Luckily, this time, the burn only took 4 or 5 days to heal, and not 3 months.
Another common occurrence with abductees is unusual and bizarre wounds, feeling ill. Prior to all these being abducted, they lived a normal life, no health issues, common cold, so forth, but everything was fine. After an abduction, they come up with all kinds of things, weight loss, hair loss, marks all over their body, and it just dragged them right down. They're feeling very, very, very ill.
Before this happened, I was basically a pretty healthy person, but since that experience, I've experienced severe head pressure, which is there on a continual basis.
This might be the explanation for something that happened to Karina while working on her computer one night. Without warning, she found herself regaining consciousness on the floor in front of her computer, her chair on top of her. The next day, she went to see her doctor, who ran a number of tests, including an EEG. When the test results came back, he called Karina in. Apparently, she had sustained damage to her brain in 3 separate areas. Both sides of her temporal lobes, as well as her midbrain, had been affected. The doctor thought she'd had a small seizure, which had caused her to collapse at the computer. Without an explanation for this, he felt they should keep a daily watch on her. Karina felt it was another way of saying they didn't know what was wrong. Karina copes with her seizures, but what is truly terrifying to her are the cold spells. With no reason or warning, her body temperature will quickly plummet from normal to around 34 degrees Celsius. Her muscles freeze up to the point where she can hardly speak. or even move without extreme effort. These cold attacks come so quickly that she has no time to react. It becomes a difficult task even to dial 911. At the hospital, doctors worked hard to stabilize Karina's body temperature. Her heart has been affected as well, and Karina is afraid she may die during one of these spells. After several days in hospital, Karina is stable enough to go home. But no one has an answer to what is causing the cold spells.
My heart was beating irregularly, and they were afraid that it was actually going to stop. My daughter has also had some similar medical anomalies that have been happening with her, which doctors have no answer for. I understand that they may have no answers for us, but it is very frustrating for us and very scary.
What happened to Karina and Linda during that missing hour in July 2003? Were they really the victims of an alien abduction? How else to explain the lights in the sky so many people witnessed that night? And the physical evidence left on the bodies of Karina and her family. Coming up next, how a pair of cemetery gates opened a pathway from the spirit world. Can you actually bring ghosts into your house? It's long been believed that some ghosts are attached to furniture. But what happens when the artifact you bring home is from a cemetery? Roxanne Wentworth of Wappingers Falls, New York, brought home a beautiful pair of iron gates that were being discarded by her local cemetery and discovered a terrifying secret.
It was very strange how we came to get the cemetery gates, because we were putting flowers on the grave for an anniversary of someone before their family arrived. And we wanted the flowers there. And we went to the back of the cemetery and around that way to get to the gravesite. And there were these big old iron gates I hadn't seen in maybe 20, 30 years. So I left a note on the maintenance shed for someone to please call me in regard to the gates. It started snowing really hard, but 2 hours later on that Sunday morning, I had a phone call, come and get the gates, they're yours.
We're now standing at the actual site of the cemetery gates, which are in front of the driveway. When I'm standing in this direction, I'm getting 0.1, 0.2, but if I just turn 90 degrees, I'm up to 1.7, which is one of the highest, 1.8, one of the highest readings we've gotten tonight, 1.9, 2, 2.1. So here I am almost directly between the gates, and there seems to be an energy pattern going between the gates up the driveway. The farther I move in towards the driveway past the gates, 1.4, 1.3, 1. So you can see I'm just beyond the level of the gates now, about 0.8, and I know the farther I move up the driveway, the lower the readings will be. So for some reason, there is a strong, measurable electromagnetic field between these gates, like an energy field moving in towards the property.
The gates were delivered right outside my front door. I had a handyman bring them, and he just put them right in the yard outside the front door until I could hire someone to install them. That night, when I was upstairs, I heard somebody coming up my stairs. It was very, very loud squeaking on my stairways, and I thought I had a burglar. I was convinced. My bedroom door was shut and the night light was on, but I was so terror-stricken, I couldn't move, I couldn't speak, I couldn't scream, I couldn't do anything. I just knew that when that door opened, something really bad was going to happen. After the noise stopped, going up the stairs, nothing happened. The door didn't open. I didn't hear any more feet, nothing. But within maybe 30 seconds, now something had me by the back of the hair and was dragging me backwards off the bed. I couldn't speak, but in my mind, I was yelling, let go, let go, let go, and it wouldn't. So I forced my head to turn, and when I eliminated space between his hand and the bed pillow, it couldn't exist anymore, and it went away. There was nothing in the room, and the door was still shut.
A terrifying midnight encounter with an invisible assailant. Roxanne Wentworth is a woman who's not easily frightened. She's a correctional officer. She knows how to take care of herself. But on this night, she brought something onto her property and seemingly opened a door to a different world.
From the Wapacher's Rural Cemetery delivered a few years ago, and that night she had told us that she was grabbed by the hair and dragged across the bed by somebody that she couldn't see. And I knew from what she said she wouldn't be able to stay here at night anymore, so I ended up spending the nights with her.
I'm not going to remove the gates. I've been asked why I don't do that. A lot of people think that if I remove the gates, I remove the problem. But no one's been able to validate that for me or prove to me that that would eliminate the problem, that the pathway wouldn't still remain. And that if the pathway did still remain, if I might experience some angry spirits because I had the gates removed. So I honor the gates.
I think bringing the portal between the living and the dead to your front yard is an invitation to these spirits. And obviously, as the activity began that very night, it has become an opening to the spirit world.
At one time, we had some investigators come in the beginning when these kind of things were happening. And we noticed that they were using simple handheld tape recorders, speaking to whatever spirits were out there. And then when they would play them back later, there would be voice in between our voice. And so we went out and got handheld tape recorders and started recording ourselves.
I'd go out there with a handheld audio recorder, and I'd ask them, what's your name? And I'd talk to them like I'd be talking to anyone who would be sitting down talking to next to me. And when I'd come inside, I'd rewind the tape and I'd play it back, and you'd be able to hear their voice.
EVPs are electronic voice phenomena, where tape recordings are played back to see if there are any sounds that the human ear did not pick up. Sometimes they are put through computers and enhanced. Other times, if you're lucky, you get clear voices and sounds just on the tape, unenhanced.
In this particular voice, I believe to be a woman saying, "We're women." I also got a little child saying, "I came out of the coffin."
We seem to notice an awful lot of activity around a mulberry tree that we have in the backyard. When we use our recorders and hold them up in the air, we get a lot of children up in that tree that are answering us or making comments like they're looking up at us or they're giving us their names. Dennis, for instance. We also have gotten ectoplasm, which is what we believe to be the spirit pulling its energy together and then coming out of that orb into kind of what we call a sloppy Casper. Very active tree.
After the break, hunting for evidence of paranormal activity.
What I'm doing is recording on an audio cassette tape, standard audio cassette tape, to try to get voice of people from beyond, and I'm using a digital camera from time to time to click pictures to see if there's anyone in the yard with us.
Just a bit of a spike right here. Lori, do you want to take a picture over here? I just got a spike. The EMF meter measures electromagnetic fields, and for whatever reason, when apparitions are around, you get measurable electromagnetic fields, and this meter is sensitive enough to pick those fields up. So what I try to do is walk slowly back and forth across the grounds and see if we do get any spikes, and we just had 1 or 2 little spikes. Generally, if there's a spirit in a locked location, you will get consistent readings for that spot, but this just goes to prove how things move around this area, because I'm getting readings in many different locations coming and going.
I have an orb towards the back.
But 45 right over here, 44, so behind me, because now there's a 10-degree difference from about 10 feet to my left to right in front of me. We're at 45. This direction, we're reading 56 degrees, about 10 feet away to my left. But when I just move a few feet over this, 44, 45 degrees. So a 10-degree difference over the span of about 12 feet is rather impressive. Whoa, 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 whoa. We just went up, we just had a big spike right, wow, getting a little chill here. I'm just covered in goosebumps right now. The meter went way up. It went to about 1.2, and the reading should be 0 or 0.1 when we're in an open area such as this. So that was a significant hit. And it was one of those spots when you hit, it kind of goes through you, the cold goes through you, and I just, 1.2 again, and I didn't even move the meter, so there's something going on right here.
We had an incident upstairs in the other bedroom where my daughter went up to get something, and she noticed from her bedroom doorway their closet door was wide open and that the light was on inside. You never leave that closet open because we have a cat. So Lori went over to her bedside stand and she picked up the tape recorder, which had just become routine for us. Took that over to the closet door and noticed that the suitcase had been placed in the doorway. She turned her recorder on and she explained to anyone that might be listening that she had seen the door open, the light on, and the suitcase in the middle, and was anybody there? Then she paused to give them a chance to respond, and then she told them that they had to please go outside now.
Thank you.
When she played the recording back, after she said, "Is there anyone here?" 2 children answered. One said yes, and one said no.
The recording here a few years back, I was at the mulberry tree in the backyard where we've had some activity. And I asked, "Are you well today, Robert?" Because that's one of the names that we had gotten on the property as being one of the people that's here. And I got the response, "Mrs. Anderson?" The strange thing about that particular voice is when they said Mrs. Anderson and I listened to it on tape, I realized that my mom's last married name was Anderson.
We're in the garage now where I personally have gotten probably the most activity in my investigations at least. First time we were asking for something to make its presence known, and the meter alarm went off, the EMF meter, and we also heard the sounds, something moving around on the walls around us. We're asking that anything that is here, give us some sign of your presence. What was that? We see what was over here? Something just dropped. This?
What is it?
Rope? Do you know where this was?
No, but it would have been, up on this shelf is where it would have been. There's no way to hang it over the area where it happened.
All right, so I have the meter set up and I'm just going to see if there's any activity, and I'm also filming in night vision. and we'll see if we get anything. All right, see it's moving slightly. Okay, so it's a much more sensitive meter, and it is picking up something. You can hear the sound is increasing, the needle's moving a little more, so there's definitely something right in this area. Can you make a noise like you made last time? Is somebody moving behind the garage here? When we were moving around, did somebody touch my right shoulder? I felt a distinct tap on my right shoulder. I turned around to look to see who was touching my shoulder. It was just one tap on the right shoulder. Getting that crawling skin feeling again. The meter spiked a little. Yeah, the tap on the shoulder definitely got my attention. I'm kind of I'm at full alert here now.
Is anybody sensing or getting a feeling about anything?
The camera just went out. My camera just went dead again. This is the second time tonight. I had a fresh battery in it before and it went out. Okay, oh, whoa. Okay, just as I'm looking at my dead camera, the meter had spiked up to 1.8 and now it's back down to 2, 0.1. So something's happening in this spot.
That was not me.
Was this down here before?
Two big orbs.
No, it was not.
Where was this?
Probably on the shelf.
Well, that's an interesting sign.
Yes, it sure is.
We asked for something to be moved, so you think this is what fell onto the... Can you make the meter make a sound again?
There's a big orb on the ceiling over by Linda. Linda, you getting any readings over there?
Just dropped 6 degrees and then went back up again. Whatever is going on is happening in this few feet here.
I myself didn't really believe in this kind of thing before I started experiencing it for myself, but now that I've actually lived it for a few years, there's no question in my mind that things happen around here. We hear banging on pipes in the basement and people walking around in a room that neither my mom nor I are in at that time. I go out there and I take pictures and I can capture them on digital camera. And I can, the more I see, the more I know that there's other folks here with us. So I talk to them and I communicate with them and let them know that, we remember them and, we appreciate them being here.
We're hoping that the gates don't just create a way to enter. We're hoping that they might also create an exit.
It could be said that the gates that open onto a cemetery are a metaphorical door between the living and the dead. But have the gates at Roxanne Wentworth's house, gates that stood for almost a century at the local cemetery, become a literal portal for the restless spirits to move between their world and ours? Roxanne and her daughter Lori believe that's exactly what's happening. In the meantime, the haunting continues, and for now, the gates still stand. Coming up next, the eerie apparitions at Chickie's Rock, Pennsylvania.
Chickie's is a very interesting place. Its history goes back to the early 1600s. A local archaeologist found canoes and beads and pottery in a small cave at the foot of Chickie's Rock. There were a lot of burial sites around here from 2 different Indian tribes that lived here. This has been the site of many deaths, whether they were intentional or people just ending their lives because they don't want to live in this world anymore. A lot of rock climbers come to the face of Chickie's and come up and practice their skills. Unfortunately, there have been quite a few that have had to be rescued by the local fire department and rescue teams.
I'm a member of the local search and rescue team, and we had gotten a call that a man had committed suicide up in the wooded area around Chickie's Rock. So our team was dispatched to try to retrieve and recover the body. When we got to site, we split up, which is standard operating procedure to try to cover as much ground as possible, as quickly as possible. just cut through some pretty heavy brush down to one of the main access trails. That's a little bit easier walking. Hadn't seen anything yet. Just walking through access road on the trail. So far, nothing yet. Out. Suddenly, I felt an intense cold feeling. I looked off to my right. I didn't really know how to describe this for you. A shadowy figure, very dark, about 8 or 9 feet tall. It actually looked down at me and pointed at me and then disappeared. Just seconds later, this thing popped up over to my left, only about 15 feet from me. It looked like it was about to move towards me, and I don't mind saying it, I was completely terrified, and I got the hell out of there as fast as I could. I will not do any more work up on Chickie's Rock. I won't go back up there to this day.
Sometimes it's tragedy that keeps spirits earthbound. Other times it's unfinished business. But at Chickie's Rock in Pennsylvania, it's believed that somehow the land itself attracts spirits. Is it a vortex? An opening into another world where spirits come and go at will for no apparent reason? You watch, you decide.
I love coming up here to go jogging. It's probably my favorite place to go. I come up whenever I can, mostly on the weekends. I came up not too long ago. I drove up early in the morning, and it was odd. I started hearing this kind of tribal Indian drumming. So I thought maybe there was some kind of ceremony going on. So I started to follow the drum, and it kept getting louder and louder. I don't know if you've ever been around these kind of drum circles, but the sound is unmistakable. The drums are like really deep and resonant. I could actually hear the drumsticks hitting the animal skin. It was really vivid. The sound kind of led me up this rise. And the moment that I stepped into the clearing, the drum beat stopped mid-beat. Normally a drum will kind of ring on after it stops, kind of echo, but this was sudden dead silence. And there was also this feeling. I felt like some kind of energy, almost like that feeling like someone's watching you kind of thing. I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain.
Well, there's an interesting theory about Chickie's Rock. It concerns ley lines, and apparently where these ley lines intersect, there's increased electromagnetic activity. So that's one theory as to why this area is so haunted.
So I was hiking through the woods about 5 miles from my house, and I was trying to find a good spot to lay out my blind. And I came upon this old foundation of, looked like an old farmhouse or something. And I went to look at the foundation, and out of that came this young Amish couple. They started walking across the foundation, so I was wanting to follow them because it was hunting season after all. It was kind of dangerous for them to be out there. And they were just effortlessly going through branches and brambles, and they went through this really thick briar brush at one point. I had a lot of trouble getting through it, but they just seemed to go through it completely effortlessly. They were approaching the rock, Chickie's Rock, and knowing all the things that go on up there, all the people that jump, they were walking right towards it, so I told them, don't jump. Don't jump! And I ran down after them, and they were gone. So I walked back up, and I wanted to retrace my steps. And as I walked back up, I came back across the foundation again, and there they were. They disappeared right into the foundation. It was the weirdest thing I ever saw.
When we return, confirmed sightings of a Bigfoot creature at Chickie's Rock.
The phenomena at Chickie's Rock is very difficult to explain. The only way I can describe it is that it has a life of its own. At least it seems like that.
So I was working nights at the time, and I didn't get off work until about 3 a.m. that night. And the drive home takes me right past Chickie's Rock. So I'm driving home, this figure, what I thought was a person, appears on the road in front of me, and it was big. Like, I thought it was just this big guy, right? But the closer I got to it, the more I realized that it wasn't a person. With this thing, you could tell it wasn't an animal, right? The glow in his eyes seemed to come from within. I just slammed the horn down, and I look up, and it's gone. So, you know, going to work, I drove by the next morning, and there was no sign of anything. About 2 weeks later, I'm driving and I'm listening to one of those call-in talk radio shows. And I hear this woman describing the exact same thing I experienced.
Tell us about your experience.
This place called Chickie's Rock, and it's actually right around here. I saw something come towards me, and, you know, if I described it, you probably wouldn't believe me, but it was really big, and, you know, it had these eyes that were, you know, they almost glowed.
So I called the DJ, and I begged this guy to give her my number. Yes, I need you to put me through to the DJ.
I'd called into that radio show mostly because I needed to tell somebody my experience. I was driving down the road near the rock when my car stalled. It just died out of nowhere. It was freezing, and I was pretty angry because I had just gotten my car back from the shop the day before. So I got out and I opened the hood, and that's when things got strange. I saw something out in the tree line, and it was making its way towards me. It was big, and its eyes seemed to glow in the dark. And as I got closer, I could see that it was covered with hair, but it was walking like a man. I was terrified, and finally I couldn't take it anymore, and so I slammed the hood down, and, you know, I tried to scare it. When I looked up, that thing was gone, as if it had never been there. The other strange thing is, my car started right up, but I, you know, didn't stay to think about things. I just had to get out of there.
It was a relief to talk to someone that could validate what I saw. But the strange thing here is that, in spite of how terrified I was, I'd give anything to have another look at that thing, or to communicate with it. But I think it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
I've heard people say that that rock is some kind of gateway that lets creatures from some other reality or dimension cross over to this side. But if that's what that other dimension has, well, I hope they stay where they are, because I never want to see that thing again.
My advice to those who want to come and visit Chickie's Rock is, number one, come during the day. It's a beautiful hike down from local Route 441. Watch out for snakes as you're hiking. Watch out for poison ivy. And don't come alone. And even if you do, you might find out you won't be here alone.
Join us next time for more spooky tales from Creepy Canada's Ghost Vault. I'm Brian O'Day. Thanks for watching.